Christina left the operating room and walked quickly to the office. Her hands were shaking, her face was covered in sweat, and tears were involuntarily rolling from her eyes. "Christina Petrovna, are you all right? Do you need something?" The senior nurse rattled off, looking fearfully at the head of the surgical department. "Just tell me." "No, Alochka, I'm completely fine. But thank you for your concern." The woman smiled tensely, looking at the employee with gratitude. "There's a patient there, whom I just operated on. As soon as he comes to, let me know. Deal?" "Okay, as you say. Should I make you some coffee? Or order lunch at a restaurant? I can imagine how exhausted you are. The operation was very complicated. No one could have handled a case like this except you. In fact, you saved a man's life. I never tire of admiring your professionalism." "Don't exaggerate." The head of the department tensed up again and nervously twitched her hands. "I just did my job. The situation was difficult, but not critical. We've dealt with worse." Alla looked at her boss suspiciously. No, there was definitely something wrong with this woman. She didn't seem like herself. "Make me some coffee and bring me the medical report of the patient from Ward 32. Without waiting for an answer, Christina Petrovna quickly turned around and almost ran down the corridor. Having burst into the office, the woman fell into a chair and covered her face with her hands. More than anything, she wanted to burst into tears and cry non-stop for an hour, or 2, or 3. Her soul was torn apart. What she feared most of all suddenly burst into her life. The terrible nightmares that tormented her almost every night turned into reality. This simply couldn't be. It wasn't supposed to happen. Praying to God, she asked him to never bring her into contact with this man again. But the higher powers decreed otherwise. Today, on the day of her mother's death, her own father was on the operating table. Why on this day? Why in her operating room? On her shift? There were more questions than answers. The woman opened a drawer, took out valerian tablets and took 2 at once. Her head was pounding. Christina took a few deep breaths, lightly pressed her temples and stared at the computer monitor. There was a knock at the door. A second later, Alochka entered the office, holding a cup of aromatic coffee in her hands. "I brewed your favorite. With foam," the head nurse announced solemnly. "And yes, about the patient you operated on. He began to come to his senses. The indicators are good. I think his life is no longer in danger." The head of the surgical department slowly shook her head. "Excellent. So we did it again." Alochka hesitated a little, and, looking down at the floor, asked uncertainly, "Do you know this man? Is he an acquaintance of yours?" "What makes you think that?" Christina Petrovna asked her subordinate, sternly. "Well, of course, you always fight for the life of every patient, but today there was something special in your actions and movements. You were very worried." "You imagined it. I don't know this man. It must have been a hard day," the woman answered sharply. "Enough talk. Let's get to work." Pictures from the past flashed before her eyes, one after another. Exactly 30 years ago on this same day, Christina's mother died of a serious illness. Although the girl was only 13 years old at the time, she remembered every detail of the nightmare she had to endure. She couldn't come to her senses for several months. The days were filled with grief, sorrow and sobbing. At first, her father was worried, muttered something unintelligibly under his breath, and was almost never at home. Christina did not ask questions, but she was sure that he was dating the woman her mother constantly talked about. Yes, her father had another. Grandmother claimed that it was her son-in-law's adventures that caused her daughter's illness. Christina was never able to find out the details about this, because her grandmother's heart could not stand it. 3 months later, the girl lost another loved one. If Christina was torn apart by pain and worries, then the man, on the contrary, perked up, and very soon it became clear why. Less than a year had passed since he decided to marry a second time, but this was not the main surprise. It turns out that Aunt Zina already had 2 children, a daughter from her first marriage and a son from Christina's father. From the day her father's new family moved into the apartment, the girl's life turned into a nightmare. Brother and sister ignored her. Father did not notice, and stepmother tried to find any reason to scold and punish. The woman did not even try to hide her disdain and irritation. Being a calm and quiet child, Christina tried her best to deserve the love of the new mother. She did not expect that she would be loved like Anton and Nastia. She dreamed of only one thing, a tiny attention, a simple smile, a warm hug, but she never got anything. One day, when the girl turned 14, her father came into her room and said indifferently, "Christina, circumstances have developed in such a way that we are forced to send you to an orphanage. It is good there. You will like it. Good teachers, lots of children." "But why?" the girl asked, bursting into tears and trembling with fear. "What have I done, Dad? Why are you punishing me? I will obey. Just don't give me to anyone." "I don't want to. Please." "We don't have money for you. Aunt Zena is pregnant. We can't handle 4 children. You are already an adult, you will quickly get used to it. And stop crying. So my soul is sick." The girl begged her dad and stepmother on her knees not to send her to an orphanage. She promised that she would eat only oatmeal, ask the neighbors for old clothes, and not bother anyone. But her pleas were in vain. Her father packed her things in a bag and took her there to a grey, cold, concrete building that became a real prison for her. She knocked on the window, begged, screamed, cried, but her father left without even turning around. Forever. Not once in 30 years had she shown up, called, asked how things were. And today, this man turned up in her department, all beaten up, crippled, on the verge of life and death. 2 weeks had passed since the operation. The man was in good health, so he was recovering quite quickly. Christina sent colleagues for daily checkups, but today she decided to visit the patient in person. She realized that she was ready to look into the eyes of the man who had caused her so much mental pain and suffering. "You came after all," Pyotr Alexandrovich said quietly as soon as the doctor entered the room. "I thought you wouldn't dare, or wouldn't want to talk to me." The woman froze in surprise. How did he know who she was? It was as if her father had read her thoughts, and calmly replied, "I know everything about you, daughter, even if you never guessed it. For example, I know how you prepared to enter medical school, how you loved to help the teacher check the students' tests, and how you put a plate of porridge on the head of a boy who dared to confess his love to you." "Were you following me?" the woman asked, in bewilderment. "Always. I was even at your wedding, hiding around the corner of the registry office. I saw your happy eyes and was endlessly happy about your luck. You are a great girl, a smart and strong woman. I am proud of you, my son-in-law and grandchildren." Christina looked sadly at her father and asked dismissively, "Do you think I care about your opinion? If so, then I'll have to disappoint you. In my reality, you haven't existed for a long time." Pyotr Alexandrovich grinned. "Then why did you save my life? Why did you try and fight? Why didn't you just leave me to die?" "It's my professional duty, nothing more." "It's not true. I feel it." The man's voice sounded 100% certainty in his own statements. "You're just very offended. And you know, daughter, that's fair. I understand you. But believe me, I have my own truth too." "Which doesn't interest me," Christina interrupted her father sharply. The man didn't pay attention to his daughter's rudeness and continued to repeat his truth. "I didn't want to leave you in an orphanage. Hear me." But Aunt Zena insisted. There wasn't enough money for anything. I had nothing to counter her words with, and 2 sons on my hands. "It's difficult." "Shut up," Christina hissed desperately. "Parental love must be proven by actions, not words. I didn't need your money. I asked for love and care. I begged you not to leave me alone. And what did you do?" Pyotr Alexandrovich silently stared at one point on the wall, not daring to look his daughter in the eyes. "I was faced with a difficult choice, to lose you or the whole family. I didn't want to, but—" "And where is your family?" the woman asked, smiling sarcastically. "No one has visited you for 2 weeks. Moreover, not a single person has called the department and asked about your health. Where have your loved ones gone?" For a moment, it seemed to Christina that the man hesitated, as if he was thinking about whether to tell his daughter the truth. "They are not there," the man said barely audibly. "More precisely, they are, but they don't need me anymore. Zena died 2 years ago, her daughter got married abroad and left. My sons convinced me to transfer the apartment to them, and then kicked me out of the house. I was left with nothing. On the street. I have nowhere to go except under the bridge. Actually, Some drunks beat me up there. How is that possible? The woman could not believe her own ears. Is it really possible in our time? To be so stupid? It would have been better if my life had ended 2 weeks ago. You should not have saved me. The daughter looked at Pyotr Alexandrovich in confusion. Grey hair, a sunken grey face, a downcast look. Only now did she notice how much weight the man had lost. You should not worry. Life has severely punished me for you and for your mother. I will only tell you one thing, daughter. I have always loved you, and will love you. Christina did not answer. Tears rolled down her cheeks. So that Pyotr Alexandrovich would not notice, she quickly ran out of the ward and headed to the office. The woman understood that in another week or two, she would discharge her father from the hospital. But where would this man go, and where would he live? Would she have the courage to send him out into the street? Tormented by doubts, Christina shared her thoughts with her husband, but had a completely different answer than she expected. Darling, I understand your pain from childhood trauma, but we grew up, time passed. You can't live under the influence of emotions from past events. We all make mistakes and have the right to forgiveness. Will it make you feel better if you leave your father on the street? Will it bring you pleasure? I don't think so. Be above your grievances. Christina understood that her husband was right in some ways. But to forgive, to forget, no, she couldn't. Having considered various options in her head, she finally found the one that completely suited her. The next day, early in the morning, the woman went to the ward to see her father. How are you feeling, Pyotr Alexandrovich? Thank you. With your help it's great, the man answered casually. I came with good news. In a couple of days we can discharge you. Really? A faint sadness flickered in her father's eyes. I understand. But that's not all. You said that you don't have a home anymore. You have nowhere to go. I was thinking about how to resolve this issue. The man's face lit up, and hope appeared in his eyes. Do you care about me, daughter? You could say that. After all, 30 years ago you didn't throw me out on the street. You showed kindness. You sent me to an orphanage, and I'll send you to a nursing home. The daughter confidently declared to her father, there are good nurses there, lots of grandparents. It will be fun, do you believe me? The man froze. He looked at his daughter attentively, without taking his eyes off her. You can handle it. You're strong, right? Pyotr Alexandrovich was silent. Without waiting for an answer, Christina left the room. She felt terribly unpleasant, but she wasn't going to change her mind. Why on earth? Father got what he deserved. On the day of discharge, the man ran away. No one knew when or where. As a farewell, he left her a small note, which he passed on through a nurse. Thank you for life. Never forget. I loved you and will love you until the end of my days. They never saw each other again, which Christina was very happy about.